Speaking of numbers, man, we gotta talk about LB's hair god right now, man. That's how L wants to do his hair dye with that little circle, little ball in the back from Rainbow. That's Rainbow store.
Never.
We gotta talk about Drizzy, man. You know what I'm saying? Wheelchair Jimmy.
So Canadian.
And Wheelchair Jimmy.
What's this all about?
Basically, we were just talking about numbers real quick before we go into and talk about somebody legendary.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying him, I'm talking about Project. He did 613. He did 613 on Certified Lover Boy.
Yep.
On this album, he was predicted to do 210 to 213. Is this a flop for Drizzy? We just real quick, you know what I'm saying? It's a flop for Drizzy.
This is a flop for Drizzy. Let's be clear that for him, this is a flop.
Anybody else, they love to do these numbers.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, but let's also be clear that we have to understand how streaming numbers work as well, right? Which is that if you come out with a song, let's say like 9 months ago, and that song streams like 30 million songs or whatever, right? You get like 100,000 record sales off of that one song that's been out for 10 months for your album. All right. So I believe with Certified Lover Boy, he had a few joints that came out prior to the album actually coming out. And when you have songs that come out prior to, it builds up your numbers so that when your album actually hits, the numbers end up being kind of inflated, but they're inflated because of maybe 2 or 3 songs, right?
Okay.
So when you do this thing where you don't release those songs prior to, and they're not on that album, they can't contribute to your first week sales, it's always going to look lower.
So with that said, do you feel like he would have garnered the same average of numbers his first week if he had done that?
No, even if he changed up the formula, let's say that he took the 2 hottest joints off of here, which I'll never know because I did a quick breeze and this wasn't for me.
But you did a quick breezy.
But let's say he took the 2 hottest songs off of here and he released them, let's say 2 months before this came out. He might have got to 330, which still would have been a flop for Drake. Okay, let's be clear. For Drake, that is a flop. So it might have gave him another 100,000, but it wouldn't have. I don't think either one of the hottest songs on here would have really moved the needle too much further than where it's at. But I did want to clarify how streaming works because sometimes people kind of get that confused, and it's also the reason why you can't compare any of these streaming numbers to any of the stuff that happened previously.
But this is why you come to Fresh Out.
Big facts.
I totally agree 110% with everything that Bell said. In addition to which, the edit of that little poop emoji right there, and then right there. I think that says something.
Who's so immature on our staff to do this?
I have no idea.
God, dang it.
You're a loser.
You trying to make it professional here. We're trying to do numbers.
Yeah, I know. We're trying to do first take numbers, okay?
Yeah.
Well, long story short, do you think there might be a balloon effect with the numbers that where like, hey man, because remember the last episode we were talking about like most of the women right now are I'm FRTEF nigga free. So they're playing all this gangster street stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Do the majority of most of her consumers want to hear house music? And I mean, even Drake, do they want to hear? We know his fans don't want to hear it, but this might bring him into the Ellen DeGeneres fans.
I personally don't think so because
Drake, I don't know him. I know the house song.
Right. And I don't think that his core is gonna gravitate. I don't think they are gravitating toward.
But do you think he'll bring in a new fan base though? The Buzz Lightyear fan, the same situation kiss.
Not in the fashion that I think that they might be aiming for. Don't get me wrong. In
who
certain
knows
areas
what they're
like Chicago,
aiming for at nighttime? Golf life. Stop.
Right, you're right.
But long story short,
it's
do
gonna bump
you see this album eventually doing big numbers? Or you think it's just going to plateau off because it's like, oh, it's Drake. Oh, hype, and then everybody just goes down and just stop listening to this, weed play.
I mean, when it comes to artists like Drake, folks kind of gradually listen to more and more of their songs and projects, at least from what I gathered. But on an overall basis, I think it'll plateau gradually, or maybe in a sharp, downward spot. Who knows? But I do see a plateau of some sort. Yeah, I don't see it going anywhere either.
Said it ain't going nowhere.
This ain't going nowhere. You know what?
Yeah.
Some of his other albums, maybe some of his other albums might increase in sales because they'd be like, oh man, I do want to listen to Drake. Not this Drake though. I want to listen to the old Drake.
Right, and
a lot of people wanted that Chick-fil-A. Remember that album that looked like a Chick-fil-A little logo album cover? That's what most people wanted, man. That 50 bands, 70 bands. They wanted that Drake, man. Yep. You know what I'm saying?
And he's like, F it. But the thing is,
LB's favorite album.
Yeah. If for those who've listened to Fresh Out for a little bit of time now, I've been getting on Drake for the last few albums that he's done, to say the least. And even with the music that extra pause, and with even without him doing the Honestly Nevermind, he was on a downward trend to begin with. Even there,
even go there. Oh my gosh, this is a young man out here trying to make a living.
Hey, no lies detected though. No lies detected.
I'm just saying, like the minus the Honestly Nevermind, the last few albums just hadn't been there either. That was music, just I guess catered to his core, but he wasn't even really passionate then with with those songs
he's just
and
doing
those
it
projects.
For the bag since he's in a new contract.
I think he's trying to usher in a new wave with the house music crowd and audience. I think he feels like he could do it in a non-effort fashion, so to speak. But I don't think it's going to work. Not in the way that he thinks it is. Now, don't get me wrong; it's still going to be bumped in like Chicago's and certain areas of Miami. Wherever there's a house, wherever there's a club full of house music or whatever, people are still going to dance and rock to it. But as far as like just on an overall basis, I don't think he's going to accomplish that goal of having a whole nother genre dang near worship him. I just don't see that happening.
Well, here's what I think. I think that this album will be almost kind of like what was it, Yeezus by Yeezy, where that album didn't do anything, right? But it sparked a whole lot of people to take it because I think Yeezus was too far out there and it was too far ahead of its time for a lot of it. And so the album didn't do anything, but you saw all this stuff sort of spawn from it. I could see that happening, but this album it ain't there. Even like Yeezus, it still is not a great album, but people listened to that and they took a whole lot of things from that Yeezus album, and you started to see some other greatness from there. And so, maybe he might be able to look back and say, hey man, I sparked this by doing X, even though this album is not gonna do what he thinks it's gonna do. That's the best case scenario he can wish for.
Now think about it. He probably was hoping that Jack Harlow was going to be the one to just like zoom off with his core style, and then Drake could, just be like, "Hey, you go ahead and do what I was doing over there, and then I could just do this over here."
You got the Koofy.
Let's be clear.
Got the Koofy.
This is almost like an independent album for him as far as money's concerned, because it's the first album and we don't really know where the money's at, but this is the first album on his new deal.
Yes, it is. It is. Let's be clear.
We don't know. So he could, it's almost like selling out the trunk. Yeah, you can go $1 million on a label, but then sell 50 out the trunk and you made more money. So he's basically playing with house money right now.
Yeah.
So
why not?